one of the questions that I got earlier in the screening room was, why do we have these three companies together on this panel? We have a e-commerce company in Groupon, and we have two big financial services giants in American Express and JPMorgan. And what's really common across these three companies? And we talked about it, and I think the two things that came out is, one is that neither of these companies were mobile-first companies. If you think about it, they all started off doing something on the physical world or online, and then mobile just happened. But they've all reacted very, very well to that phenomenon, and they'll talk about what that has meant for their organizations. And the second thing is that all three of them actually serve the same constituents. They serve consumers, people like us in this room, and they serve small businesses, merchants, especially local merchants. So they're going to talk about this mobile phenomenon from those two vantage points. And so without further ado, let me just open it up to the three of them. And perhaps maybe David, we can start from that side and talk about what has the impact of mobile meant for Groupon, how it has changed the company in terms of strategy, impact on the business, and what are your top priorities as you think about the mobile world? And then we'll go along the line.
Sure. It's interesting. I also wondered how I wound up on this panel with these esteemed folks from the financial services industry. Groupon started out as a local business, and I think even as mobile was developing alongside with Groupon, we always anticipated that we would be a big mobile business. The change that we've seen really in the last year has been the transition from a company that expected to be big on mobile to a company that is big on mobile. We announced last quarter that 45% of our North American transactions happen on mobile devices now. So we're within shooting range of truly being a majority mobile company. We have apps in 42 countries. And fundamentally, we're learning now how to link the local portion of our business, the out and about, the discover your community part of our business, with this awesome device, this sensor that lives in your pocket.
Stefan.
So, thank you for inviting me to this panel as a representative of a company that started in the paper business, actually in the horse-drawn carriages business in 1850. We then were the first innovators in 1893 to bring a paper payment product to the market. And then in 1956, when we brought a credit card, a piece of plastic, actually hard cardboard, to market. At that time, there was actually a McKinsey report that's on my wall that said, the advent of credit cards is going to be the end of American Express because it will cannibalize the paper business. So we have significant experience in order to, when it comes to changing horses. And so what we did in 2010 as a really base card businesses, we made an acquisition of a company called Revolution Money. We turned this into a platform that we're now calling Serve. And I, for some reason, ended up in this business, and my title there was something of online and mobile. So we set up a totally different unit that focused just on online and mobile. I'm one step away from the chairman, which is very unusual in a top-heavy organization such as American Express. Please don't quote that, press. But all in order to make sure that we really bet on this on this source. What we found is actually it's not the right way to think about online and offline in a separate way from an organizational perspective. Our platform happens to be cloud-based and is accessible through a number of different channels. And a little later, I'll talk about some of the key use cases that we found. But just to talk about online or mobile as an access point that is going to revolutionize people's lives has not worked for us. What is working is to focus on what consumers actually want and to deliver that through whatever channel the consumers choose. So it's been quite a journey for us.
And as it just relates to Chase, I mean, 5,500 branches, it's, is about as local and customer-facing as you can get, to, thousands of ATMs, to a website of 30+ million monthly unique users. That's sort of like the progression of, some of our product offerings to customers, and then mobile, obviously the natural extension of that. And just some of the stats around the financial services industry, to your point about like being where our customers are, there's 30% growth in people paying their credit cards via mobile device. So as of right now, that's almost a quarter of all smartphone users pay their credit cards with their mobile device, which is, as you think about it, it's a huge number that's happened. And that 30% growth is from quarter to quarter. So it was 19%, last quarter. And then from a kind of banking standpoint, again, the reason why Chase, has built the couple of mobile products out there that I've actually done really well and have gotten some great customer reviews and great usage is that, depositing checks on your mobile device has also grown 40% in the last quarter. So, 21% of all smartphone users are depositing checks with their mobile device. For example, with our quick pay deposit, there's a lot of other products out there now. So clearly that's what consumers are telling us. Yes, we were going to the retail branches and ATMs, and now we're kind of in online and now mobile. So it's just we're following consumer path, basically.
Let's talk about your mobile strategy and maybe a couple of points for each of you. Are you looking at mobile as a way of acquiring new customers, or are you thinking of mobile as a way of engaging existing customers who are now using a different device 24/7? And then maybe talk about a couple of specific products that you've launched or about to launch for both consumers and merchants. David?
Sure. I think that's actually one of the most interesting transitions. If you go back like a year, we thought about the life cycle of a customer as being you signed up for Groupon, you used Groupon on the web, and then eventually you would sort of migrate into mobile. That was like an extension of the experience. And one of the trends that we've been seeing is, we're actually seeing these mobile-first customers, the people who have their first interaction with Groupon when they download the app, and may never come to the web. The kind of secondary dynamic that Stefan alluded to, which I think is really powerful, is the way in which people are just seamlessly going from platform to platform. We in our old world way want to attribute sales to the web or attribute sales to a tablet or attribute sales to a smartphone, and what we're finding is people are just gliding from device to device throughout their day, and the transaction gets made on the device that they're on when they're done. And we need to support that metaphor. It's just not as discrete and distinct as we used to think it was.
So just to stay with you for a minute, what have you changed in terms of your product on the mobile device versus what used to be on the web? Are there specific things you did for the Groupon app that made it resonate more? Yeah, so we completely redid the Groupon app probably about 3 quarters ago. And the real metamorphosis was from an app that was a utility that went alongside the web into an app that needed to contain all of the functionality that we had on the web and more. We now have an app where we merchandise all of our deals, where we have all of our functionality. We have functionality on the app that you can't get on the web. The ability to, and I don't know if folks are Groupon users, but the ability to kind of go in and redeem your Groupon voucher without ever having printed it out. I heard somebody earlier today use the word utility to describe their app, and I kind of recoiled. The app is not a utility that rides alongside your business. It is the heart of the business. Okay, great.
And just on that point, we've found that mobile adopters, we have a much higher lifetime value with those versus non-mobile adopters. So across all the products we find, if you are using our mobile products, you have higher balances, you do more transactions, you have more Chase products, so you're buying other Chase products, you have less attrition if you're a mobile adopter. So for that, what that means for us, just strategy-wise, is we need to spend more money marketing to people to use our mobile products. So for Flurry and the other folks out there, because we have no shortage of marketing dollars at Chase.
Are you lobbying for something?
Yeah. So that just impacts our marketing efforts, and traditionally we haven't been huge spenders in the mobile marketing space. So that's going to change going forward.
Are there specific products that you've launched on mobile for either merchants or consumers that you can talk about, or?
Jot is a great product for small businesses to manage expenses, and it's just that kind of thing. It's like it's such a core thing for small businesses to manage on the go. The quick deposit product. The mortgage team recently launched a My New Home app that connects listings to calculators to contacting a local mortgage banker. So I would say on the kind of transactional, useful mobile products, Chase has done a pretty good job. I would say we probably need some more work on our apps that are more content focused. So the shareholder letter we did recently, there's those kind of products we can evolve a bit more to be more mobile first versus sort of PDF centric. Is still stuck in that world a little bit as it relates to those things.
So I mentioned we bought this company called Revolution Money 3 years ago, which is a digital platform, first digital platform that American Express acquired. And then we paid the bill for the purchase, and then we thought, what are we going to do now? So clearly the digital revolution is in the offing. Everything's going to change within 12 months. So how about we sell an electronic wallet? We also have no shortage of marketing dollars. We spend all of those on trying to communicate to people, get this electronic wallet you can do and send money from one person to another. It's really cool. Super, yeah, your phone thing, app and all that. I mean, it's just really hot. And we were the only ones that were hot about it, right? Because no one else knew what difference it would make in their lives, right? I mean, there are use cases you can delude yourself into believing like, okay, let's share a restaurant bill. Pizza slices, right? I mean, that's not a problem to be solved. We found out at great cost over a number of months of trying it. So then, a couple of iterations, I'll spare you the entire story. But eventually we get to an interesting insight, particularly for American Express, which is, okay, actually, there's tens of millions of consumers here in this country that have no access to any banking service whatsoever. It's largely, to all of us, actually, I'd posit an invisible segment of the population, but it does exist, which, by the way, is also diametrically opposed to what American Express stands for today. Now, these guys have no bank accounts, which means they can't transact the most basic services that you and I are familiar with, either online or offline, but particularly online. So that's interesting. What type of assets do these individuals have? Then you look at smartphone penetration. I don't know if you know this, but it's a fact that the underserved populations that I'm describing here have a higher smartphone penetration than the rest of the population. So they actually have access devices. And what we've done is turn this electronic wallet into a quasi-bank account that's accessible via the mobile phone, and that offers services at a leading-edge transaction cost to consumers, a far broader range of consumers that traditionally have had no opportunity to interact with American Express. Why have they no opportunity to interact with American Express? Because we are going through traditional procedures such as credit checks, which for our charge and credit products just simply exclude, by way of maths, these individuals. However, the way we've reported serve and manifested this in a partnership with Walmart called Bluebird is we have turned this platform into this bank alternative that is universally qualifiable, because all you need is go through a KYC check and you're in the franchise. And then all of a sudden you're a total part with regard to the access point that you have with regard to interacting with the economy in the United States. Now, again, this is the thought and the genesis of this was entirely mobile. 3 years ago, this cloud-based account that we conceived of had as an instance a card without a name, without a brand even on it, right? We thought this card would go away within 12 to 18 months. Turns out it takes a little longer for the card to go away. Actually, it's kind of interesting how long and how persistent the card infrastructure and use cases in this country are versus NFC, right? Which was the big bet 3 to 5 years ago, which I think is going to be a bit like waiting for the Messiah, right? In this case, waiting. I mean, eventually he or she will come, but the merchants need to help the coming. So let me stop here.
So, Stefan, that's a very interesting use case that you said there are 10 to 15 million Americans who don't have banking capabilities, and you're bringing that population into the financial world by giving them a mobile-first wallet. Is that right?
That's right.
So that's amazing. I've never heard that before. That's amazing. That's because I've always wondered, why do I need to get rid of my American Express card when I have it in my pocket and put it on my phone? But if somebody doesn't have a card, that's great.
And that's the entry point
That's the
here,
entry point.
right? Actually, if you do have a card,
Yeah.
you're fine, actually. I mean, I have, it's really, you guys live in New York, some of you live in New York, every single cab here has like an NFC thing, right? And you can also swipe it. I have an NFC-enabled card, for example, also an NFC-enabled phone. I never swiped it. I never like waved the thing. What's the point? Why? Right? I mean, the swiping thing, mostly, right? I don't hit it properly, and there's no added benefit, right? So on the wallet stuff in particular, I think as an industry, focused far too long where we enamored with like the form factors as opposed to what really drives engagement that then determines what form factor you access. Right? So I think we've really learned that we need to move away from being in love with the technology and moving towards being in love with what really changed people's lives for the better, because that is the only thing that truly will drive adoption.
That's a great point. You talked about the wallet. Let's stay on that topic for a minute in terms of forms of payments. And so we have things like Square coming up in the retail market. For many of you, from the perspective of the local merchant, what are you seeing in terms of adoption of newer forms of payments where it allows them to accept either credit cards or other, even perhaps cash more efficiently?
It's a super complex question, and it's made more complex when you get outside of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Groupon has recently introduced a payments product. We're excited about that for a lot of reasons. Probably the most interesting is because to the extent that we can get, like every marketing organization in the world, to the extent that we can close the loop, that we can be on both sides of the transaction, that we can see where our merchants have demand, where they have weakness in demand, and provide marketing services, we can be a much better partner. So we're super excited about that. As an international company, I think my colleagues can speak to this as well. One of the real challenges for us in growing our mobile business globally has been getting sophisticated. You can integrate with payments fairly easily around the world, but understanding the user behavior on a country-by-country basis, it's the part of mobile commerce that really requires you to be sophisticated on a country-by-country basis to the largest extent, even today.
All payments is local.
All payments is local.
So Stefan, Stacey, what about international versus domestic? Are there any major differences you're seeing from either your merchant customer base or consumer base in terms of preferences for payment options?
Honestly, I don't have a clear line of sight into that. Chase is a U.S.-based branch mostly. JPMorgan, obviously international brand, but I don't have a good sense of the difference between those two certainly for those two.
So, we do have representation in many other countries, but we are still a US-centric company, and but we're planting flags everywhere that we're at. There's one place where we're really not, which is Africa, and I've had a chance to look a little bit under the hood there. I mean, there's really a total revolution going on there with regard to mobile payments, and these are not even smartphone payments. They have nothing to do with NFC. Right? This is basically turning your handset into a transporter of value and a bank branch.
This is M-Pesa you're talking about, that sort of thing?
As well as M-Pesa as one manifestation, but actually this is like a virus that's spreading across, a good virus, that's spreading across many countries in sub-Saharan Africa that solves. I mean, these guys really deserve a Nobel Prize. Right? I mean, what only 2 years ago required you to pay 15% of the face value of a transaction to be carried literally via a courier from a place like Lagos in Nigeria to a village to your mom, right, who relied on your income, now happens in seconds for the exchange value of the equivalent of cents. I mean, it is really, on the most basic phones, BlackBerry, so even below that.
He said that.
And I carry one, to sympathize. So that's that. I think it's actually another point of evidence for the fact that use cases. I mean, solving real problems is what drives mobile adoption, right? And that's why you'll see in markets like Western Europe, for example, that are really behind even, as far as payments are concerned, behind even the US when it comes to mobile adoption.
Yeah, that's a great segue. So let's talk about use cases. What do you think are one or two use cases that are on your list of things to do that you haven't gotten yet? And what are you hearing from your merchants or consumers as their top needs on mobile?
The thing that's interesting about our business is that we're a multi-channel business. So everybody knows that Groupon started out as a local deal provider, and then we added a physical goods channel, and we added a travel channel, and we anticipate we'll continue to broaden our business over time. The biggest success, the biggest surprise for me was the success of the goods channel. Mobile and local are such a kind of a natural fit. We always felt like the local deals would swamp everything, but the goods do great. I think last Black Friday, our goods channel did well above 50% of its traffic over the Black Friday weekend, and we went back and looked at that. And I think the real driver there is the nexus of entertainment and shopping. I think anyone who's in a commerce business, there's a tendency to want to think about commerce businesses in terms of conversion funnels and transactions. So much about mobile is about entertainment. So much about commerce is about entertainment. We all at some level, Simon had some great stats earlier about this, we all at some level shop for fun. And I think that what we've seen is that the aspects of our business that do provide that kind of, that entertainment hit, that fun, that kind of momentary burst have done really well, and the goods channel is a great example of that.
Yeah, I mean, now there are 10% of Chase digital customers are mobile only. So in the adoption of the new products that we've been rolling out has been really strong, and just the volume of transactions from, again, depositing checks is really staggering. And so I think it's up to us. I mean, we are not a company who is typically a leader in a market around launching new products. We're probably more often a follower because of all the regulations, all of the other stuff we have to get through to give birth to a new product. But clearly, our consumers want to do more on their phones. So our job really is to build as many kind of products as possible that are relevant and fit that core need, I would say. One big opportunity just on kind of the payments piece is that, as it relates to retail and shopping is, providing benefits back to the customer to using, one of our mobile products when you're in a store, about getting, rewards and points for a credit card, for example. So that's an area that we're kind of focused on and how to translate, a commerce experience to a benefit back to the consumer for using, a Chase credit card, for example.
I think just to camp onto something you said, the mobile depositing is such a wonderful feature. Yeah. And I think it goes to the point that Stefan made a moment ago about if you can hit that one use case. I mean, we all fall in love with these various elaborate mobile use cases, and every once in a while one pops up where you just see it and it's so crystal clear awesome. Yeah. I love the fact that I don't have to go someplace to deposit a check anymore. That is almost magical.
Yeah, it's huge.
Or call a cab from your phone.
Or call a cab. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So just to build on a couple of the points that my fellow panelists have made here. So first on the check thing, as you probably gathered by now, I'm not from around here, and just the fact that there's still checks here. I mean, that's just a friction point. I mean, this is just, it is absolutely ridiculous. And while you guys have done a great job, right, with the photo of a check, I mean, hello. Yeah. Right? It's the most, and quite seriously, but if you ask, if we talk about the underserved segment, right, you have no idea how many people are still being paid in checks, literally, where the employer cuts a check at significant processing costs, and the employee then takes a check, goes to a physical location to, maybe if they have a Chase account, but I doubt it, right? They take a photograph. More likely, they pay 20% and cash the thing at a check casher somewhere. So that's just working around a problem that shouldn't exist to begin with. But going back to the real mobile thing here, right? I mean, people do, and I do, even I, that used to do the horse and the carriage thing. Right? Even I really only want to shop on my iPad, right? On my iPad rather than the phone, just because my fingers are so big that I can't get the thing to work. But and then because my fingers are so big, it's a real problem, right? To fill out all these fields, that sucks. Unless you do autofill, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Sucks even on the iPad, right? As you move that thing, right? I like shopping, and I really like using my Amex card, or at least a number on the card. But it just the pulling it out, that really is a pain. So what our consumers are telling us, and not just me telling you, is that you can take that friction out by interacting in a far more seamless way with a site to complete my transaction. That would be really good.
Yeah.
And so we tell that to the merchants. And the merchants look at us and say, okay, so what was it going to cost us to build that? Because while the merchant, you'd think the merchant value story would be very strong, right? Because likely their volume would increase if you take friction out from a consumer perspective. But they have a concern, and all our networks here, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express, are thinking of like placing buttons. That was our idea from 2 years ago. Right? Place a button on the website. And we thought it was really a brilliant idea, me included, as usual. And we went to merchants, and they said, why would I put, like, okay, you're the fifth guy, like, in 5 days to show up here to tell me I should put a button on my... do you have any idea how much it costs to program my website? And by the way, why should I do 5? when the current transaction, right, on the drop-down menu, you have... So there's no industry solution. And merchants, and this, I think, is actually what the NFC guys in particular have found, have really underestimated, right? Merchants are a key constituency in this whole ecosystem. And even if the value proposition kind of holds, they do not want to pay any more than they do today, and they do not want to feed an extra mouth.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right? So that's, how we think about the merchant community is, I think, really crucial to step changing the mobile transaction.
Great perspective. Let's open it up to audience questions if there are any. Please raise your hand, and there are mics up on both sides. So do we have a question? There's one at the back. Yeah, go ahead, please. If you can shout out loud, I think we can hear it. Great.
Clearly, there's not a lot of love for NFC on the panel. But I mean, the iPhone 5 didn't have it. Big player in the market, and certain of the wireless companies prevented other products launching on their handsets until they had their own ready. So if you add all those up, that's like 60% of the smartphones just couldn't have it. Do you think that once you get iPhone and the wireless carriers playing, you'll get adoption, and then you'll start to see maybe not the usage that we're talking about now, but some new usage or usage in examples that we haven't thought about yet?
Any of you?
So let me, given that I'm the biggest fan of NFC, but by the way, I should say eventually, for sure, the transaction will all be, in a different way, completely in a different way than today, for sure. I think it's actually not so much a question of the ubiquity of the handset, and a lot of carriers are in the process of upgrading this, at least in this country. Unless you have ubiquity, and I mean ubiquity, in the merchant universe, you will go nowhere.
Yeah. Right.
And in this country, not in others, but in this country, there is a very organized and concerted effort to make sure that that does not happen unless there is significant benefit to the merchant. And I don't see that occur today or next year.
Great. Question back.
Hi, I'm Shan. I actually work at American Express.
Uh-oh.
Did you know she was going to be here?
Good job. I'm just curious, tangential question to what's been discussed so far. At what point in the purchase path do you feel that a customer decides which card product they're going to use? or which payment option they're going to use to make a transaction.
David, maybe from the Groupon?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, they decide when we present the options to them. I'm trying to figure out if there is, I mean, we test different conversion funnels all the time. And, you know, and we're very concerned on mobile, like everyone else, about the difficulty in inputting a card number. We've experimented with the scan options. I'm curious about a firm, Max Levchin's new company, mechanisms of taking that step out. You know, I think in general we try to move that step as far down the funnel as possible because it is really kind of the last hurdle to conversion. I don't know that I have any great wisdom beyond that.
I kind of feel like it's still the brand that, you know, so if it's a dining thing in Sapphire, for example, 2 times the words I'm dining, so it's probably that pull still a little bit more in the decision making as it gets to that point, versus any ease of execution yet, because I don't think the ease of execution is still pretty the same among them. So.
Well, I guess the one thing I would say is that if there is an ease advantage, if there's a stored card, if there is a mechanism to take a step out, particularly on mobile.
I agree. That would help, but.
I mean, I would think once you want a product, you're going to get it, even if you have to type your card number twice, right? Are you seeing that? What is the abandonment rate for?
I think anyone who runs a commerce business will tell you that abandonment is a risk at every step in the funnel and every incremental keystroke. I mean, you know, we don't publish these numbers, but the difference in conversion between users who we have a stored card on and users who we don't have a stored card on is material.
Material. That's great.
You know, it's hard. His fingers are big. It's hard.
Any other questions from the audience? Yeah, one here.
This one's for Stacey. So you had talked about your budget increasing over 2012. Not talking specific numbers, but percentage-wise, what do you think your budget will increase to this year for the mobile space?
I mean, it is like pretty small. When I say small, I mean like low single digits right now. So, you know, even if we double that, that's, you know, relatively significant, just because there's big budgets. But it really, you know, so in mortgage, for example, since they have a new product and the card business, some of the numbers I said before, definitely is part of their roadmap. But you know, we're right in the middle of 2014 planning, or between now and sort of early September. So, you know, I don't have a great sense yet of how much it's going to go up, but it's definitely a strategic priority given the lifetime value increase that we're seeing with mobile adoption. So.
Okay, perhaps one more last question if there is one. Is there one? No. Okay. There is one. Okay, sorry.
I know I can't see.
There was one right there.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sure. So I think this is probably directed more to David, but there was a lot of talk about consumer-facing processes, use cases. What are you seeing on the merchant side, developing future merchant portals, merchant apps to kind of solve some of their pain points, deliver analytics, et cetera?
Sure. We're doing a lot of stuff on the merchant side, and we do. We've always described our long-term ambition to be the kind of the operating system for local commerce. And you know, that is a grand vision about closing the loop, about being able to serve a merchant's. What merchants want is not to have empty space in the schedule. They don't want to have empty seats. They don't want to. You know, we think that if we're at both sides of the transaction, we have the opportunity to really help with that. In terms of what we're doing, we've done a couple of interesting acquisitions. So we bought a company called Breadcrumb that has a really interesting set of POS assets in the food and drink space. We've introduced our payments product, which is you know, super competitive with Square and others. And you know, it's our intent to be extremely competitive on price and the other dynamics that animate that market. And we've had a Groupon merchant application, a smartphone application for years at this point that allows merchants, you know, one of the hardest parts about the Groupon transaction is closing the loop between the customer bringing in their voucher to get their, you know, kind of half off, and getting that redeemed. And we've had a scanning solution that we've used that has gotten terrific uptake from merchants and allows us, when a merchant will do that, to give them pretty rich analytics about how their deal has performed and about how their business is getting value from Groupon. I actually think that that asset by itself is really powerful because it's a little bit of a gateway drug. A lot of small businesses haven't had the experience of being presented with a kind of a rich analytic dashboard about their business, and giving them that opportunity to be able to kind of run a marketing promotion and see, get the type of analytics that I think a lot of us are comfortable with seeing in our businesses is really powerful.
Great, thanks. I know I'll end on a note where I think most of us saw Simon's presentation earlier in the day where he talked about what people do on a 24-hour cycle on their phones, on their smartphones. And the good news for all of us on this panel is that whether they might play games in the morning or not, whether they share their photos in the morning or evening, shopping is one thing that they do 24/7, irrespective of gender and age and geography. So keep doing that, and I think there will be a lot more to talk about in this panel next year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.